Welcome to The Unedited Woman, where you'll hear candid conversations to improve your everyday life. Hello everyone, and welcome back to another episode of The Unedited Woman. Today in the studio we have Lahana Vigliano. Lahana is a doctor of clinical nutrition and the founder of Nuvitru Wellness. She specializes in functional medicine, focusing on holistic approaches to nutrition and wellness, including gut health and hormone balance. Lahana aims to empower individuals to improve their health through personalized, evidence-based strategies, advocating for natural healing and overall well-being. She is also a business owner, podcast host, and mother, blending her passion for nutrition with her life experiences to support others in achieving their best health. Lahana, welcome to The Unedited Woman. It is so nice to meet you.
Yes, you too. Thank you for having me. I'm so excited to be here and excited to talk about all the things that we plan to talk about.
I know, right? So I came across your page on social media and it was just like you spoke straight to me, and I love everything that you're about, and I think the topics that we're going to dive into today are going to be so helpful for the people that are tuning in. You know, the mission of this podcast is really to have candid conversations across a broad range of topics to really help women enhance their daily lives. And I think that functional medicine is one of those umbrella topics that can be so broad and I think still quite misunderstood in many ways. So I'm so excited to get your knowledge and your insights on all of that good stuff today. So let's kick it off with a bit of a personal question. I feel like most people that move into these kind of spaces where they're wanting to help other people, it generally is driven by a personal journey. So I'd love to know, what was your own personal health journey that led you to taking this wellness approach to your life?
Yeah. Actually, I don't have a personal health journey. I always feel like, wait, what? Not that I'm complaining, but I'm like, what is wrong? No, I'm just kidding. But usually most people do have a personal health journey. And for me, it was more of a educational journey that led me to where I'm at. So I was like the weird 5-year-old kid that knew exactly what they wanted to do. So I always knew I wanted to be a doctor. Now, granted, I thought that was going to be an MD, but I went with that until obviously college. And then backing up a few years, I actually had my son when I was 17, 18. So I became a young mom. And so I feel like that in general starts kind of shifting our desires, our wants, I don't know, it shifts everything. And totally. When I was in school, I was still pre-med, and I started realizing that it was pretty much just a pill for an L. So you find the diagnosis, you obviously learn about the body, which was my favorite thing ever. Like I loved anatomy and physiology in high school. Like I loved all things learning about the body, but the way that treatment is, again, there's a time and a place for it. Emergency med, I'm so thankful for. You know, if you get in a car accident, please don't come to me. Like definitely go to the ER, right? But I felt like that was it. You have diabetes, here's metformin. Like why? Like why are we not understanding, well, why is this person having diabetes in the first place? And there's not a lot of answers there. It's truly just pharmaceuticals. And so that's when I kind of started rethinking of like, okay, I'm a mom. I don't want my kids to be a statistic, because chronic breast cancer, cancers in general right now are like 1 in 2 in women. And it's just like, I don't want my kids to do that. So what can I do to like help my kids? And then I'm like, and I don't want to be given like what, it was like a whole, I don't know. It was a whole thing because, again, I was 5 and I always knew what I wanted to do. So it was definitely very surprising that I wanted to start pivoting. And I took a class on nutrition. And to be completely honest with you, like I wasn't completely sold, but I started seeing like, okay, I can see where this is a big part of having optimal health. And so then I changed my major and I took my doctorate all the way through clinical nutrition. But that's kind of what led me here. To be honest.
Wow. And in that process, did you look at your own habits and kind of go, oh, wow, there's some work to do here?
Yeah.
Yeah. What were some of the things that
so ashamed. Yeah. I'm just kidding. I'm not. It's everyone's like, it has
it's a
this
safe
season of their
space
life.
here. Yes, of course. Oh, trust me, I've been there.
Yeah. No, I laugh at it. Just because I was a young mom. And so like, I did not know what I was doing. I didn't know what I was doing in the kitchen. So I like would make like instant mashed potatoes and canned green beans and like awful quality food. I grew up on a standard American diet. So at the time I don't know, I really didn't know anything different because that's how I grew up. But again, kind of looking at the statistics, yeah, I slowly like started changing the way we ate, and then I started changing the products that we use in our home, and it's like honestly a rabbit hole, which I'm sure if anyone's been down this rabbit hole, you know the rabbit hole that is to come. But yeah, there was so much that it's like night and day, honestly. And it's been a journey, right? It wasn't overnight, but I'm glad I got to where I'm at now, I guess.
Yeah, I agree with the whole idea of it being a rabbit hole. It's almost like once you peek behind the curtain and then you can't unsee what you then know. And it's like, if you do start to do things that maybe aren't so good for you, they're almost even not as enjoyable because you know that it's not the right thing that you should be doing for your body.
Yeah.
It's like knowledge is the best thing in the world.
Taking care of your body.
Yes.
But it's also when you start taking care of your body, you also just don't want it. Or like I used to love like Reese's, for an example. And then when you start eating like real chocolate, like Justin's comes closer, Unreal is another good brand. But when you eat like real chocolate with like real peanut butter and then you eat a Reese's, like it definitely does not hit like it used to. It feels chemical.
Yes. I totally know what you mean by that. Okay, so it's a huge, broad topic. Why don't we dive in a little deeper with you sharing for the audience maybe some of the key principles behind functional nutrition and how that differs from your more conventional approaches?
Yes. So I think the biggest thing that stands out with functional wellness, whether it's functional nutrition, functional medicine, is that it's trying to aim for the root cause. So like I said, instead of just saying here's metformin for diabetes, it's well, why is diabetes occurring in the first place? And it's not even just diet, right? We're looking at stress, we're looking at sleep, we're looking at environment, we're looking at movement. All of those things matter. So we're looking at things from a bird eye perspective and in different areas of our life, and we're trying to understand the root cause, because when we get to the root cause work, we're able to reverse things. And that's really where a lot of people want to get when they're trying to seek out functional care. Now, I will be the first to admit that, it was a pill for an ill in conventional, right? Like just that example I gave, but there is a pill for an ill in functional too. And obviously our practice, we try to avoid that, but I have found that even some functional medicine doctors, because I think they're so trained conventionally, I would imagine it's kind of hard to get out of that line of thinking. I'm not saying that that there isn't a time and a place for this, but now it's a natural pill for now. So a lot of our patients come to us and they're like, oh, they just gave me, I saw a naturopath and they just gave me so many supplements. And I'm like, yeah, that's pretty much what they do. So instead of, again, it's a natural pill for an ill. So it's like, oh, you have inflammation. Here's turmeric. Here's boswellia. Here's all these things. But it's like, well, why are you having inflammation? And sometimes there's a little bit of root cause work, but a lot of the time it's just like, here's some supplements and get on your way. So I would say we're trying to definitely be different in that way and make sure that we are aiming for the root cause, because that is the number one principle of conventional versus functional, is understanding what that is.
I actually feel like I've gone through that journey myself. We'll talk about it probably a little bit more, a little bit later, but I've gone to naturopaths before and I've had my blood tested and all of this kind of stuff just to kind of dive into maybe what the cause of bloating was. And I've had celiac tests and every test under the sun. And I think I've gone through that process of spending $1,000 on herbs and supplements, and it's just not done anything. And then I've always come back to the starting line, I guess. So I'd love to know, when a client comes to see you, what are the questions and the ways that you start to really ascertain what the root cause is? Like, is it sleep? Is it diet? I mean, I'm sure it's all of those things, but do you go through a specific process?
Yes. And I would say definitely the first session is like your red flag. And honestly, we have a lot of our patients that bring like their care plans, and some of them have seen some of the best functional medicine doctors that they've seen, like that really big ones out there in this world. And I look at their care plans and I'm not impressed, y'all. Like, and that's saying something. Like, I'm like, this is actually pretty poor, to be completely honest with you. Now, granted, I have really high standards that it even like, it sucks even for me. So when I have to go see a doctor, I'm just like, it's fine. It's fine. I'm just going to do my own thing anyway, but whatever, we're here. But the first session can tell you if it's going to be a red flag or not. And so what we do is we go all the way and go all the way back to when you're in your mother's womb. And I feel like if your practitioner is not asking what your childhood was like, and honestly going back from your mother's womb, then to me that's a red flag. So we go back to mother's womb, we hit elementary, middle, high school, college, and obviously here. And yes, it's the health things. So it's like, I had antibiotics as a kid a lot. I had ear infections or I had stomach bugs all the time, or I had mono in high school. But it's also like my parents got divorced when I was 5, or I was sexually abused in middle school or high school, or I had an abusive boyfriend in college. And we want to understand that side of things too. And not that we're therapists, but we do put you on this timeline, like actually a physical timeline on paper, and we'll start to see like this happened. This started happening, her body spoke to her in this way, she started having headaches, and then all of a sudden she started having bloating 5 years later, then this also happened, and we can start seeing like that big picture and knowing like where to start. Because I will say everyone's health journey, I think of it like a bucket, and there's all these things contributing to the bucket, and when they don't feel good, the bucket is overflowing. But it's diet, it's sleep, it's stress, it's movement, it's past trauma, there's all these things. So we are just trying to, again, we don't do it all at once because it's overwhelming a lot, but we do one at a time, and our goal is to like help reduce the amount of liquid is in the bucket so you're not overflowing. And of course, sometimes that takes more than our team too. I mean, we have a personal trainer on our team, and obviously we are all trained and functional, but sometimes it can take a therapist, which I'm actually in the works of like, maybe I need a therapist on our team too. Just because your health is all encompassing. You can't just say like, and I literally studied diet, and you can't just say like, oh, it's just food. It's not just food. It's not.
Absolutely. I know for me, stress is such a big contributor as to whether or not I'm holding on to weight. Like, I know some people lose weight when they're stressed. I hold on to it. It's like my body goes, it's not safe. We need as much protection as possible right now. So we're going to hold on to every single fat cell possible. And it's, it will not budge for me. And then if I get into a state of calm and relaxation, it just like, falls away naturally. It's so interesting to witness and observe. And the same with my sleep, because of course, if you're stressed and you've got high cortisol, you're not sleeping well, and then your body's not repairing and digesting and doing all of those important functions. So I mean, if somebody did come to you with all of the above, those things that you've explained, they've got past traumas, they're experiencing bloating, their hormones seem to be out of balance, maybe they're not in a great relationship, like, where do you start? Because as you said, you can't tackle everything at once. That's impossible. What do you think the most important thing to start with is?
I would say, naturally, I feel like we start with diet, but we start with gut health. So even if you come to us and you don't have, most of our patients do have some type of bloating or constipation or acid reflux or something. But even if you don't, we've definitely had people that are like, I am coming to you because I have painful periods and I have headaches. Where do we start? I'm like, gut health. Because it is like the kill two birds with one stone. It is the one stone. Because that is where that's where we digest our food. That's like where everything starts. And if you can't even do something so simple of digesting your food, then you're not going to get the nutrients from it. You can't get the nutrients from it, then everything else is just going to fall wayside. So it's such a great, and I feel like we're on the tip of the iceberg of learning about gut health, how it's connected to metabolism, how it's connected to anxiety, how it's connected to sex hormones. It is truly connected to everything. So I like starting there in the body, and then with diet, and the nervous system is very close, and or we're kind of tackling that together if they are feeling like stress or kind of being in fight or flight is there. But honestly, I sometimes don't believe people. I feel like after doing this for 10 years, there's some things I just don't believe people in. And I will say that's one thing of stress. And they're like, I'm not stressed. I'm like, honestly, I think you're so addicted to stress. You don't even realize that you're stressed anymore.
Yeah, it becomes the normal baseline, right? Like,
yes,
if you operate out of a certain level for so long, it just becomes the norm. It was the same with me when I was drinking every day, and I would be constantly hungover, and that's just what my baseline was. And now, at almost 5 years sober, I'm like, oh my God, this is what it's meant to feel like naturally. You know, my baseline is so much higher now, and I have so much more energy. But I was just used to existing in this perpetual state of grogginess, fogginess, you know, short-tempered, highly stressed, all that kind of stuff. And to your point, people just don't even realize the amount of stress that they're storing and holding on to within their bodies.
Yeah. You don't know the next level, which is always the best part, because you go to the next level and you're like, how did I function?
Yes.
How did I live?
Literally. So tell me, what do you think some of the most common misconceptions around gut health and hormones are in this current day?
Oh my gosh. I would say I have like 5 on top of my head. The first one is that it's separate. People always want to say like, well, they definitely give us weird looking eyes when they come to me for a painful period, and they're like, why are we talking about my poop? And I'm like, I promise there's a connection there. But the belief that things are separate, and you know, I kind of blame Western med, because you have your cardiologist, you have your neurologist, you have your gastroenterologist, and they have separated the body, and the body just doesn't work like that. It all works together. But I would say that's number one, is you can't work on hormones without working on everything else, which I guess goes into my next misconception, is that a lot of people come to us and they're like, my hormones are out of whack, and they want to like, you know, do Dutch testing, and they want to go deep dive into their sex hormones. And I'm like, no, even if you have low progesterone or testosterone issues or estrogen issues, they are just following the lead of other areas of the body. So if you want better hormones, we have to back up 1,000 steps, and we got to look at gut health, and we have to look at blood sugar. We have to look at environmental toxins. I mean, there's so much to look at before we even acknowledge sex hormones. And not that we're ignoring them, and even if they are giving you symptoms, we're still trying to figure out the root cause of why our body may not be ovulating. And that's all these other areas. There's no special thing of, oh, you take this herb and your progesterone goes up. Like, no, that's, as much as we want that to be that easy, it's just not that easy. So that's, I would say, a huge misconception with hormones. Also going into, people thinking they can supplement their issues away. I see it a lot on I've been loving like threads and stuff and Instagram, but people are like, I'm having bloating. What supplement should I take? And it's like, what probiotics should I use? And I'm like, well, one, you should test, because I can have 2 PCOS patients and they can have completely different support plans, totally different, because everyone is individual. So again, and I just think it takes more than just a supplement.
What are you testing for? Like for that, with that example, Lahana, if you've got PCOS client or somebody comes in talking about like, what are you actually testing for in that instance? Is it like the gut microbiome? Is it inflammation? How do you test?
Yeah. Yes, for gut health, we're doing stool. So we're testing inflammation, we're testing digestive enzymes, we're testing bile acid metabolites, we're testing short chain fatty acids, immune function, beta glucuronidase, which can tell us some indication of like hormone detoxification, bacteria, parasites, yeast, viruses. So like, I don't know, the whole shebang. There's a lot that we can get from stool. And then same with like sex hormones. I mean, we look at full thyroid, we look at estrogen, progesterone, testosterone, we look at blood sugar and insulin. I mean, environmental toxins, so phthalates, parabens, BPA, glyphosate, pesticides, the whole shebang. So mold, I don't know. I feel like we test so many different things, and obviously every patient depends on what they have going on is what we'll recommend. But yeah, that's honestly what is needed to, again, start trying to understand this root. And the last misconception I can think of before I forget is elimination. People tend to think like, okay, when I eat dairy, my stomach hurts, so I'm just going to eliminate dairy. And they think that's the last thing to do. Like, okay, my gut health will get better. That is one very tiny step. Restriction it shouldn't be long-term. A lot of the times, most people can bring back a lot of foods that are problematic. I used to break out with dairy all the time. So I had to be dairy free for 4 years, had to do a lot of gut work. And now I have dairy multiple times a day, every single day, and I don't break out, right? So a lot of people think that elimination restriction is like the end all be all. And that is like the very starting point of it. That is not using food as medicine at all.
Yeah, it's so interesting, isn't it? I've gone down the same path of trying to eliminate certain foods, and I don't know, I feel like it might work for a small period of time, but then it stops working.
Yep.
And I don't know, I've been told that I'm allergic to all sorts of things, but I eat them today and I'm fine. So yeah, there's so much misinformation, like I was saying at the top of the show, and I think that's why it's so important to go and see an expert, someone such as yourself, if you are having these sorts of issues. I want to know, Lahana, what is the most common concern, or what is the most frequent trouble that you're assessing and diagnosing and treating within your wellness center?
Oh, I mean, obviously this is probably biased because we do gut and hormones and metabolism. So I would say like stubborn weight loss and bloating. I would say 95% of people that come to see us, usually they have more to it than that, but that's almost a very common trend we see.
Yeah. And how many people do you think are walking around today undiagnosed with issues to do with their gut and their hormones? Because I feel like it is actually probably such a small percentage of people that actually go and get treatment for this stuff.
Yeah, I would argue that everyone, no, I'm just kidding. Most people, I would argue that most people, because even when I did my test for like I've done multiple types of tests, but I've done multiple stool tests in my life. And when I was trying to figure out the root cause of acne, I always start with gut. I was like not having any gut symptoms, right? So like no bloating, my poop was like Bristol stool chart number 4, like absolute perfection. And I still had things that I needed to work on, because a lot of people don't realize that before they get diagnosed, they have the symptoms. And before they have the symptoms, they're having biochemical changes that happen that don't show anything. There's no symptoms tied to them. So that's why when people are like, oh my gosh, I got diagnosed with cancer, or I had a heart attack and I was so healthy. No, you weren't. You've been unhealthy for decades. You just didn't realize it. And so I think everyone to a degree probably has everyone kind of has their own struggles, right? Like anxiety and stress. And so someone may have, HPA dysfunction, which is, the short term that people hate using, that it's technically not a medical term, but adrenal fatigue. But HPA dysfunction is the scientific term for it. Like some people can struggle with that. So honestly, like I think most people, there's always something I feel like that we can be working on and getting better. And life will always be lifing. So even things of like losing a parent and going through grief, that is going to change our internal health as well. So that's what I'm saying is like, there's always seasons where you're working on things, seasons where you're good, then seasons where you have to get back into it. And that's just life.
Yeah. What happens internally when we go through something like an extreme trauma or grief?
I'm actually like such on a like deep journey of this, of trying to deeply understand it more. So I've been like reading books like The Body Keeps the Score. There's other books that I'm
books right behind
me.
Oh
my God, you have it?
Oh, it's the best.
Okay, I'm listening.
Yeah.
I will say I'm listening to it, and I will say, man, I feel like he could hit on the points a little bit quicker than he does. So like, this is an 8-hour book. This is insane. Yes. So I'm actually still in the midst of reading it. Because from what I can see, I feel like I'm such a geek for like understanding the physiology of how things work. Like I love understanding on even a chemical level. Like, okay, if you have this deficiency, it's affecting your Krebs cycle, and the Krebs cycle is within your, human cell. It's like what we learned in high school bio. And I love learning deep like that, but I definitely am still a little surprised, even to this day, of how trauma can impact the body. And I've seen it impact the body by people not being able to lose weight. I've seen it impact the body of people just struggling with chronic GI stuff, regardless of what they're eating. They're sleeping perfect. And I feel like there's this just like undenying trauma that they may even have felt like they've went through it and have done. I've seen a therapist, but they haven't really gone deep enough. And I mean, there's statistics that show that even people with childhood trauma are at such a high risk of like cardiovascular disease when they're adults. So I don't know. I feel like, do we actually understand how it works? That's why like I'm on a deep learning of like listening to all the books and trying to understand what it all means.
Yeah, it's crazy, isn't it? What you were talking about with the therapy as well, like, so my own experience around that is, so I went to rehab at the start of 2020, and that's when I got clean and sober, and I started my deep therapy journey then, and I was seeing a therapist one-on-one every week for about a year, and then it was like fortnightly, and then it went to monthly, and now I kind of just check in with her as I need. But I had an experience last year where at 4 years sober, I had a panic attack. And I realized in that moment that there was still things that my body was holding on to that no amount of talk therapy was going to process. And so I ended up going deep into the world of breath work. And I've actually just done my facilitator advanced training. And I'm now, sharing that with clients because I was so passionate about what had happened to me as a result of starting to do this work, because I was able to release things that I wasn't even conscious that I was holding on to. It's like he says the body keeps the score, and the body holds on to some things that you can't talk your way through. And also talk therapy, you need to understand as well, is like the therapist can only give you the amount that you're willing to share. And I think sometimes people will naturally hold back, or your body has created some sort of
Forgot.
Yes. You can't remember it because your body's trying to protect you and keep you safe. So looking at other modalities as well outside of therapy is so important. I'm such a big advocate for therapy, but what other somatic healing practices can you implement? Meditation, all of those healing modalities I think are so important to have that full spectrum care when you're looking at your health overall.
Yeah, I know. I'm going to start doing, I've been doing therapy for a little bit, but we're going to start doing EMDR, which I'm really excited on doing.
Yeah, wow.
And I actually am so thankful that I don't have really too much of a traumatic past. I mean, maybe some mean girls in high school, but nothing compared to like what some people have been through. Doesn't even come close. And so I'm actually using it for pre-grief because my mom, I think she has a couple more years left. She has kidney disease and stuff. And so I'm using to kind of prep for grief. And in a way, I'm obviously a control freak as much as I can. So I'm like, okay, this is going to be a time where I feel out of control. So what can I take control of? So let's work on my mental health beforehand. Just some other things. So I love that.
You know what? I think you make such a good point there. I actually have a dear friend of mine whose mum was diagnosed with a terminal illness at the end of last year, and she actually just passed away this week. And both of them, the husband and wife, gave up drinking at the start of the year so that they could be present and spend those last 10 months that they had with their mum and grieve in real time. Because I think that, when you're drinking through grief, or, there's lots of other ways that you can implement maladaptive coping mechanisms that allow you to almost bypass the grief. But like we've been saying, that stuff's going to come up one way or another. So why not process it in real time rather than it coming out sideways later on in life, perhaps at a time that you are already at capacity is generally when it's going to, rear its ugly head if you don't deal with it. So, well done, Lahana, on taking that initiative. Even if it was driven by a desire to control, I still think it's like so brave and just really responsible to actually lean into that.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay, so I want to know, and I'm sure our audience would love to know, what are some practical steps that women can take to start improving their gut health and their hormone balance? If, maybe they're listening along and they're like, oh yeah, I definitely have a bit of bloating or, irregular periods, or maybe they're perimenopause, menopause. What are some tips?
Yes. And honestly, I'll start off with alcohol just because I love like your journey and like how much you've overcome, because it is like the one thing I feel like in the society that there truly is. I know that we don't always do things just for health benefits, but it is just something that we've normalized. And so I'm like obsessed with the sober movement right now. So I'm loving that people are getting curious. I'm loving like the mocktails and just like also just the normalizing like not drinking. And to give you backside of my journey, I actually have never been drunk in my life.
Stop it.
Never. Yes. I don't know what that is. I maybe have had like a sip of wine, but I honestly haven't even drank. So,
that is
I actually
amazing.
think that,
that's like, are you a unicorn? Yeah.
That's like my fun fact. And they're like, tell me something random about you that people would never guess. I'm like, I've never been drunk before, and I'm 32.
Wow, that is amazing. And like, were you just never interested? Were you scared? Like, what stopped you?
So I am a little bit of a rebel. So if you're into Enneagram, I'm an 8. So usually when there's a group of people doing something, I'm usually running the opposite way. I love being the unicorn. I love being the oddball out. But I think one of the things, when I really think back to it, I think my mom, she was a little bit of a mean drunk. So when she would drink, she would just turn mean, not abusive, but just mean. Like you can feel all the things she's ever held grudges of. Oh girl, it's coming out. I remember as a kid, I remember as a kid that I'm like, I just don't like it. I'd be so mad at her. And then, so I think that was a part of it. And then I love being different. I never saw the purpose of it. And then I think when we're young and we do it because we're trying to fit in. And I also to me fitting in, it was just disgusting. So my want to fit in was not strong enough to overcome, let's just chug this and fit in with people. I'm just I'm just not going to fit in.
Yes. Oh, I love that. That is so cool.
So, but alcohol has a hold on women. It really does. And whether I think they are ready to admit it or not, it is truly such a harm to our gut microbiome and our hormones. So hands down, alcohol needs to be taken away. And usually, we might start off of let's just take it away for a month. But then again, people start to realize how good they feel. And they're like, oh, I'm actually good. I'm not bringing it back in. I'm like, thank gosh. Yes. So anyway, so that's one. But the other one that I see a lot is under eating. So a lot of women, I think that people that come see someone for food, they're usually overeating or whatnot. Actually, women are under eating, and they're not even trying to undereat. It's not that they have an eating disorder or they are just trying to restrict. They tell me I'm eating when I'm hungry. I'm not tracking, but I'm eating when I'm hungry. I'm not when I'm not hungry. And the downfall is that their body is so used to eating so little that they are following hunger cues, and their hunger cues are all off. So they can't actually follow them. But when we're not eating enough, we are really restricting the food for our microbiome. I always say we're like a little Airbnb, and we are hosting our bugs inside of us, and we need to feed them. And when we're not, it actually causes dysbiosis, which is that imbalance of good and bad bacteria. And then also not eating enough increases our cortisol, and then that impacts our sex hormones. And then we don't have the fuel for what we need to make thyroid hormone. I mean, it just goes down all these little pathways. But under eating is hands down, I would say that's a pandemic, to be honest. I'm not joking when I say 95% of women are under eating. And I always say, a toddler needs 1,200 calories. And we have these grown women who want to be fertile and want to have these babies, but they're only eating 1,500 calories. And I'm like, that's barely more than a toddler. How do you expect your body to function at its best when you're barely feeding it? So food is fuel. So that's that's a number one. If you want better hormones, better gut health, you have to be eating enough. I know we talked a little bit too about reducing stress. That's the diet and stress are I would say our two biggest struggles in our patients. And I don't think stress needs to be hard, you guys. I think sometimes you're what supplement can we take? What can we do? Well, breath work, meditation, and those are all fantastic and I love them. But if we really get down to it, I think we just need to put more fun back into our day. I ask so many women of what'd you do for fun? Today or this week? And they're I mean, one, they don't even know what fun is anymore. They're I actually don't even know what I like to do for fun. And I think I honestly think that's the problem.
Yeah.
Or the days of not doing anything.
Yeah. I often say to my clients as well, what do you do for you? Even if it's not super fun, but just one thing in your day. Give me one thing that you're doing that is solely for you, not for your partner, your children, your colleagues, your boss. What is one thing you do for you? And I think so many people I speak to struggle to even just give me one thing.
Yeah.
So of course you're stressed. Of course you're overwhelmed.
Yes, exactly. I think there's such a need for a healthy dose of selfishness. I think we maybe were taught that everyone else comes before us, and just on an airplane, they tell you to put your mask on first. And I think, I think we also need to bring that into our life and say no to things. And, you know, my husband sometimes will be like, what do you want to do today? I'm like, actually nothing. I'm doing nothing. I'm actually binging like a Netflix show today. And that's exactly what I'm doing. And so I will say I do have no problem saying no and stuff like that. So that's not so much of a struggle for me, but I do feel like, again, there's so many deep rooted things there. Is it, do you feel unworthy? Do you feel that you're going to be judged if you say no? There's so many things I feel like that honestly goes back to potentially some trauma that working through therapy is going to be the best way to understand, like, what is this worth? Like, what are you feeling inside that you're having trouble saying no and turning away things?
Absolutely. It's that need for external validation, isn't it? And this whole idea of being a people pleaser. Oh, I'm a people pleaser because I'm so selfless and I care so much for people. And, you know, I talk about this all the time. Yeah. It's dishonest. You're not being honest when you're people pleasing, because you're putting everyone else before you, which then causes resentment. And then people don't understand why, you know, because you don't have to openly say, you know, I'm not happy about this situation, but people can feel your energy. People can tell when you're doing something that you don't really want to be doing. When if you had just been honest about it in the first place and put yourself first, filled your own cup up, then you can actually give to other people again from a place of patience and love and kindness. And I know it's really hard for people when they think, oh, but, you know, I need to do all of these things for people to love me. But that's not the case. People that are really there for you, the people that are meant to be in your life, are going to love you no matter how you show up. Like, that's what unconditional love is all about.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. I love that so much. And even too, having kids, like, right, like moms are so stressed out and they're, you know, have all these things, but like our kids feel that. And so I feel like too, when we are taking care of ourselves, and more than just like stress relief and eating, but we are teaching our kids through our actions of how to take care of themselves. And so if you are not, and you are doing that and you're running yourself ragged, I always say, imagine like your son or your daughter doing the same thing. Like, how would you feel for them? You'd be like, I don't want that for you. I want you to rest. You're worthy of rest. I want you to have fun, right? So like, why do we expect, like, we want that for other people, but we don't want that for ourselves?
Exactly. So what would you recommend or suggest then for busy women out there, like that are wanting to implement holistic wellness, but they're really busy and they don't know where to start?
That is one thing about me. You can never use I'm too busy. You truly can't. I am like the excuse remover. And I say this because I've been, you know, running a business. I got my doctorate degree. I have kids and they're 14 and 10 now. But I mean, I've been in school and actually running a business since they were toddlers. So I've been through like all the different seasons. And even at one point, me and my husband remodel this home by ourselves, like no contractors, like our hands were remodeling and painting and doing all the crazy things. I had all that on my plate and I still had time for self-care. I still had time to eat. I still had time to cook. I still had time to sauna. So when people tell me that I don't have time, I'm like, that is one thing I will not believe you on. And so one thing that we do with our patients is we make them write out their whole week from like Monday through Sunday. And what I've seen is I have them like, I get up at 7, at 7:30, I'm making breakfast, at 8:00, I'm going for a run, 8:15, I'm doing this. I mean, we're getting down to a T. It's really annoying to do, to be completely honest with you. But the whole week, it's so helpful to see, because I started seeing like why it's all about time management. Like, why are you doing this? Like, here you're taking your kid to practice and you're doing something later on that night, and you tell me you swear you can't get to bed before midnight. But I'm seeing, what if you do this when they're at practice? What if you combine this? What if you say no to this thing because you're doing, for an example, 3 things for the community, different events, maybe you're on PTA or whatnot. You need to say no to something. Like 3 is too much. You want to be involved, that's fine. Let's cut it down to 1. So again, it's going back to the saying no. And then you'll see people like, oh, I actually can go to bed at 10. I actually can cook dinner. And honestly, like it's so much more about like schedule. And that's why we can get nitty gritty just to see like, hey, look, like this is when you meal prep. This is when you'll cook. Look, you have time. But I also think too, we have, especially with food or exercise, it's just like, if I can get it in, I'll get it in. And everything else comes before that. When in reality, our schedule needs to be like, I'm eating breakfast, lunch, dinner. Put that in our schedule, just like a doctor's appointment. I'm working out 4 times a week, and I'm going to do it Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday at 11. So block, 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 block. And then everything else will fit into that. Now, honestly, if there's like a 9 to 5 job, you take that into consideration, right? Like obviously 9 to 5, you got to be working, but there still needs to be a priority to it. And that's really what it comes down to when I see people not having time for their health. They just don't put it as a priority.
I love that you I love that you shared that, because, you know, I actually put something on TikTok recently and it caused a little controversy, but basically I was saying we all have the same 24 hours in a day, and people did not like that, Lahana. They were like, you don't understand. She obviously doesn't have kids. And I don't. But at the same time, I think they really missed the message. What I was trying to communicate was everybody has a choice with how you spend those 24 hours. And I think the word priority is so key here. It's about what you're prioritizing, and at the same time, boundaries and learning to say no. You know, if you're not getting an hour break in the middle of the day for lunch, you work a 9 to 5 and you're not getting a break in the middle of the day, why not? You know, because maybe that's where you do your walk, like you were saying.
Exactly.
You know,
or two, like you can't tell me you can't take 15 minutes at all to just walk outside for 15 minutes twice a day during your shift. And maybe that isn't possible, but there's so many other things that we can even hack if you are in a cubicle, bring in a walking treadmill, there's so many things that maybe that is a little bit more limited. I promise you, I can find something to make it more health friendly.
Yeah, that's right. And even if it is, you know, waking up 15 minutes before the rest of the house, so you can just have some time to yourself before the chaos, you know, kids and all that stuff. I think there are always solutions, and it's just really the mindset that you have towards it. And also, I fully appreciate at the same time, people have seasons as well. And sometimes there are seasons where you really are at your limit, but to take some time for yourself is actually going to give you more energy, more fuel, as opposed to you feeling like, I don't have the time to do that.
Yeah. Yeah. And for sure, I think seasons is a big part of it. Even when I had young kids, when obviously I couldn't change my sleep was forever interrupted. There were things that I let go on my plate that, like, okay, maybe I can't exercise at the gym the way I want to this season, and we're just gonna do home workouts and do Pilates and buy some weights for the home, and I'm gonna work out with my kids. So absolutely, I think there's seasons where like my nighttime routine is absolutely insane, red light, sauna, all the things, and then there are seasons where my wind down routine is, I don't know, washing my face, brushing my teeth, and going to bed.
Yeah. So true. I love that. Okay, let's talk about emerging trends. What are you seeing at the moment in the world of nutrition and wellness that gets you excited?
I feel like most trends in the world of nutrition don't get me excited because everyone's so like, they're like, what diet is new? Like carnivore was new probably last year. I mean, it's kind of like dying out, but everyone always wants to jump ship on all the different diets and things. I'm like, no. But I will say one thing that is coming out is I think people are realizing the importance of like bio-individuality, and more I'm hoping more people are wanting to get more data and make health decisions based on that versus, I don't know, random 500 people telling you what supplement to use for your bloating. So I think that there is a movement in that area. And I think with TikTok and Instagram, I think we have so much knowledge, which actually I think a trend is people feeling overwhelmed of like what's right and what's not, because someone's saying this is great, someone's saying this isn't great. And again, it kind of goes back to, you're right. And that may work for her, and that maybe is something they don't need to be doing, right? Like fasting, like that was a trend a while ago. And so I think people are questioning like, well, fasting may be good for her, but what about for me? So I don't know. I think the trend of like people getting more curious about their own body. But I actually, there's not one that like stands out. Like carnivore to me is like the last one I can think of. I don't know. Do you know of any right now?
I'm trying to think, because you're right. I think fasting was huge, and then that's kind of fallen by the wayside. Yeah.
Actually, I would say Ozempic.
Oh, of course.
That's the trend. I would say Ozempic actually in wellness.
Yes.
That's a whole conversation. And I won't get too much into that, but I will say that's That's definitely a trend. And all I would say is just because someone is healthy or skinny does not mean that they are healthy on the inside. The only other thing I would say on that too is making sure that you're really crossing off root causes, because a lot of people feel like I unfortunately have a lot of patients that see local functional medicine providers and they've given it to them. And when I look at what they're doing, I'm like, you shouldn't, as much as we want to say like, yes, these are the people that have done everything. No. I have, out of all my patients, have one person that truly was doing everything she did. And I think trauma was a huge thing that was still lingering, but like she looked into environmental toxins, she's done gut stuff, she's done hormones, and it was a really stubborn case. So in that case, I'm like, okay, yes, that could be a tool in your toolbox. But most people, have you ever checked for mold? Have you ever tested environmental toxins? Because they actually are held in our fat cells. And so if we are having trouble losing weight, could our body be potentially working for us, protecting us from environmental toxins getting into our body and moving around our body? And is our body trying to store it into fat cells to protect us? It's because I think that our body is so incredible, and I think it is always working for us. So my only suggestion there would be like, have you really looked at all? And again, a lot of people still believe work out more, eat less, when in reality, eating less is actually going to lower your metabolism and you're going to have trouble losing weight. So that's what people are saying I'm doing all the things right, in quotes, when that's actually not the right thing. So anyways, that's my tangent there. There you go. That's the trend that I'm seeing, and I'm not excited about it, but it's fine.
Yeah, no, 100%. I know a couple of people who have tried it out, and I was actually having this conversation with someone the other day, and I think that, for some people it's probably really appropriate, but I think what's really important that should be advised alongside Ozempic is therapy and nutrition education. Because what I'm seeing, and I absolutely know this is not the case for everyone, so let me caveat that. But some people are taking it and still eating really poorly, and that's what scares me. Yeah. Because then it's just it's this quick fix, and it's not. What are the condition of your insides?
I've seen it too, though. I think what's even scarier is that, again, and this is coming from functional people, so they're not, it's not conventional, is that they're prescribed it and they're given it. And then we see what they're eating, because they'll like come start working with us. And I'm like, why was this not caught by your functional provider? Why did they not say before we do this, in case we need it? Because I'm not opposed to it for people that really, truly need it. Let's improve this, because I have like a patient in mind, and I was like, man, if we just did this, you actually don't need it. But now there's a belief of like, well, my provider, I trust my doctor, and they said I needed it. And I'm like, I'm telling you don't, but I can't say that. So I'm just like, well, let's just work on food and let's just do our best, right? And so I think what's scarier is, again, people's beliefs that they are doing it all when they're really actually not.
Exactly right. And I think that's where education is key. Okay. Yeah. Lahana, I have one final question for you before we wrap up today. Okay. I'd love to know, outside of nutrition, what are some wellness practices that you love that are part of your daily routine?
Okay, I love red light therapy. It's a favorite.
Okay, tell us, for those who don't know, what is red light therapy? What does it do?
So, I mean, it helps really get deep into cellular health and supporting the mitochondria of your cell, which is the little battery of your cell. So I think a lot of people know red light for like our skin. And so, yes, I do it on my face. And I definitely think it's like one of the reasons why I will never, no judgment to people do Botox or fillers, but I won't. And so some people are like, what? That's wild. Because you don't have like, I have my eyebrows raised right now and like, there's no wrinkles. Granted, I know I'm 32, but I know plenty of people my age that maybe didn't take care of their body so well and they have wrinkles, right? Because it's all about like internal health. Anyways, I'm like, why do red light therapy every day? And I definitely think that plays a part of it. But you can also use it on your abdomen. You can use it for like organs and muscles and recovery. I mean, there's more than just the topical skin, but it's really going deep into cellular health. So I do love that.
And do you have one of those, like the stand ones, or do you like, because I know they do like the face masks and then there's like the body ones.
I have not but the body ones are like the ones that are like the height of you. I have it's like middle size. So it's on tabletop, and it's a pretty decent size because I can definitely cover like from my boobs to the top of my head. So, and I will do that. I'll do my boobs, I'll do my thyroid. And so I'll like kind of switch, I guess, body parts to it.
Yeah, amazing. So cool. I've been like toying with investing in one, and I think you've convinced me. Okay, great.
Oh, do it. And then I love to sauna. We have a sauna. We have the Sunlight in. I can only do it on hair wash days. I used to do it all the time, and then I can't, like, I just don't want to wash my hair that much. So I only do that on hair wash days. And then I honestly love getting outside. And one of the biggest things that has helped that, because even studies show that just being in nature for 30 minutes, a couple times a week, lowers cortisol, is getting chickens. And so ever since I got chickens, I have just been outside more, just hanging out with them.
Yes,
and grounding. So grounding while you're doing it.
Oh, so good. So good. Yeah, you can't underestimate getting outside. It's just, there's just something about it. Even if you don't, even if it's just a tiny, if you've got a balcony or something, like just getting yourself outside of the four walls at some point throughout the days makes a huge shift, I think, to your mental health for sure.
Yeah, I think just the whole, I even actually said this on an Instagram post like yesterday. I'm like, if you're not ready to like slow down and not just, because I think people would be like, I just want to feel better, like quick, fast, Amazon Prime mentality, like I need to get better quicker. I'm like, if you're not ready to like actually slow down, and sometimes that is like going outside and making sourdough bread and whatever, just slowing down and focusing on the things that, our ancestors did, then you're just not ready for the real work. And that's okay, because everyone's at certain parts of their journey. But in order to like truly heal long term, of like what we talked about, even with things like Ozempic, like we need to slow down. And I think that's one of the beauty of things going outside, because you're slowing down and not actually smelling roses, but kind of.
Oh, maybe you are. Yeah.
Maybe you were.
I love that. Lahana, I have enjoyed this conversation so much today. You are such a wealth of knowledge. If people want to track you down, follow you, find out more, where can they go?
I love Instagram the most. So I'm on all, like TikTok, Instagram, all that. I do try to avoid TikTok, but I will occasionally go in there. But we're at Nuvitru Wellness. So Nuvitru Wellness, all one word. And then our website, nuvitruwellness.com, is also our website. And on our services page, there's a form that you fill out. And once you fill out that form, and it takes you to my calendar to schedule just a free 20-minute intro call, just so we can learn about each other, make sure that we're a good fit for what you're looking for. I do send you an email ahead of time with a video that explains like who we are, more on our offerings, building our bundles, membership, and all that. So you are very equipped to know how we work before we hop on the call. But that's how you start to work with us.
Amazing. I will pop that info in the episode show notes. Is there anything else that you wanted to share or that was on your heart before we wrapped up our conversation today?
Oh my gosh, no. I think we hit on so many good things. Like,
yeah.
This is like probably one of my favorite episodes to date that I've done.
Oh, bless you. We are so lucky to have you. And again, thank you for your time. And I'm so excited to stay connected. Thank you, Lahana.
Yes. Thank you.
Bye.